97underground.com, Baltimore's pure rock.
Hello, this is Michael Spedden, and thanks for joining us today on the 97underground.com Michael Spedden Interviews channel here on YouTube. There have been many requests from both listeners and guests for us to make available our artist interviews so they can listen again or share with others. You can find us on YouTube at 97underground Michael Spedden. Remember, the Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show, can be heard on 97underground.com every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Not only do I feature artist interviews, I feature songs you forgot you liked, classics that never die, beloved local, regional, up-and-coming, and underground artists. You can listen anytime, anywhere by downloading our free app from 97underground.com. Just do it. And now, today's episode. Hello, this is Michael Spedden, and thanks for joining us today on the 97underground.com Michael Spedden Interviews channel here on YouTube. There have been many requests from both listeners and guests for us to make available our artist interviews so they can listen again or share with others. You can find us on YouTube at 97underground Michael Spedden. Remember, the Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show, can be heard on 97underground.com every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Not only do I feature artist interviews, I feature songs you forgot you liked, classics that never die, beloved local, regional, up-and-coming, and underground artists. You can listen anytime, anywhere by downloading our free app from 97underground.com. Just do it. And now, today's episode. And welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show on 97underground.com, Baltimore's pure rock worldwide. Today we have a very special guest. I mean, normally we're having bands in here to talk, but we took a little bit of a different path to talk to somebody who is a member of the family of one of the most beloved sports figures in Baltimore sports history. Her name is Sammy Siragusa, and Sammy is joining us today to talk about Goose Flights Lager and the Goose Flights organization. Goose Flights Lager is made by Guilford Hall right here in Baltimore, Maryland. Sammy is here to talk about the Goose Flights organization, how it helps people, and the beer itself, and a whole bunch of other great things. So, Sammy, welcome to the Back of the Rack. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So, very interesting news here. You've partnered with Guilford Hall Brewery. They're producing Goose Flights Lager, named after the Goose Flights organization that you run. Tell us the history of this. Tell us where Goose Flights came from, what its purpose is, and how it came to be, and what they're doing for people.
Yes, I'd love to. So a couple of months before my father's unexpected passing, he had this vision where he wanted to utilize his private jet charter company, Titan Aviation Group, to give back in a big way. And he wasn't able to fulfill his vision. He was working with the NFL alumni. Myself and my family came and stepped in and founded Goose Flights to, continue on my dad's legacy.
That's a very important thing that you're doing. When people really have medical needs, specialized care that may only be available maybe at Johns Hopkins or the Mayo Clinic or, UCLA Medical Center or something, and you happen to live on the exact other side of the country, not only getting there and being, there's a lot of logistics involved in getting that care. Getting there is one of them. Where are you going to stay and all those things? How have you been doing with it? Have you been able to, get a lot of people to the care that they need and where they need to go?
Yes, that's a great question. So to put a little emphasis on, our mission at Goose Flights, essentially what we do is non-emergency medical transportation. So we utilize jet charter and ground transportation to transport children, veterans, active duty military, or really anybody battling an illness to healthcare all over the country. So we put a high emphasis on the jet charter, and through the launch of the beer that you mentioned, Goose Flights, we've been able to actually get some Baltimore, Maryland recipients and really help within the community locally.
That's really great. You've been able to help people, all over the place. I believe are you based in New Jersey?
So we're actually based in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, we're based there, but we operate nationally. With every trip that we do, jet charter wise, to help a family, I always will fly out there and make sure that I'm there with the family as they're going through the transportation process. So we're super hands-on,
Hmm.
which is a big part of this.
Well, that's great that you're offering people that level of service too. Somebody representing the company actually there when the services are going on. I could just imagine. And that way, you're accountable, you're showing the folks that you're accountable for everything and that things are going to go as planned. I could just imagine nothing worse. Not that this would happen with your company since you're so hands-on and making sure things do happen, but just, yeah, where's the plane? Yeah, where's the van? Geez, man, they were supposed to be
Right.
here. And so you're
Right.
seeing to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that people really get a good experience. It's very easy for with, bigger organizations for their recipients to get, lost in translation or not really have that one-on-one support. So we
Hmm.
put a high emphasis on just making sure that we're there. We will guide them through the whole process. Usually our recipients are going through a lot medically. And we want transportation to be the least of their concerns. And so that's where, the jet charter comes in and plays a really big role in alleviating that stress and pressure of traveling, more ways than one.
I know. I mean, it's a headache enough to plan a trip just to go on vacation or something that you're doing at your leisure, let alone having, not only getting to your treatment, but, where you're going to stay, worrying about the family member or, worrying about yourself being okay to get there and everything. So, I mean, this is really a huge part of taking away, really a big burden off of people's shoulders, making sure that they're getting there. I mean, I'm sure people are loving this.
Right. And especially, we've had recipients with compromised immune systems who aren't able to travel commercial, like on commercial airlines. So that's where private came into play really well. We had a recipient, our latest recipient, actually based out of Baltimore, Maryland. He has autism and
Mm,
needed transportation to Maryland, and he had never been on a flight before. And,
mm.
there are a lot of instances where, children or people battling autism where they get kicked off of the airlines because they react under stress and stressful.
Sure, sure.
Right? So we were really excited to come in and, just help this family and transport our recipient to where he had to go for treatment.
And I would imagine too, on a commercial airliner, you've got, I don't know how many people fit on there, 50 to 100 people, especially if somebody is really, it may have compromised immunity or something. You wouldn't want to put them in an environment where you have, 50 to 100 people. What percentage of them have COVID or the flu or anything, or even a cold that could really, cause a problem for that person? And also, too, I would imagine that with this being more of a private plane, that if caregivers needed to go with that person, if they needed somebody to tend to maybe equipment that they were dependent on or supposed to be there to give them injections or medicine or something, I would imagine that this environment facilitates that, makes that a lot easier for people.
Yes, yes, it really does, in more ways than one. And we even had a recipient who he was 17 and he had to get half of his pelvis and his entire leg amputated
Oh my
from
goodness.
this cancer called osteosarcoma. And he was
Yeah.
one of our recipients with a compromised immune system, but also there were only 5 doctors in the country who could perform this surgery. So he had
Wow.
to get the surgery out of state. So that's where we were fortunate enough to come in, Goose Flights was, and transport him post-surgery back home to finish up the rest of his chemotherapy.
Right, right. And I would imagine too, I mean, somebody like that can't be bouncing around on a plane. I mean, you probably have the facilities to maybe secure somebody into place if they need to be secured while they're
Right.
traveling as well. So, wow, it really sounds like you've got, just a great idea going here for people.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank
yeah.
you. And another thing that we want to do too is we understand there's a big gap, in transportation, even just
Hmm.
short distances as well. So we also do ground transportation for short distances. So we set up park services and make sure that nobody is limited to healthcare just because they don't have the means for transportation.
Sure, sure. I mean, again, this is just such a huge part of it that not a lot of people think about until, oh my God, well, how am I going to get there?
Mhm.
It's just, well, I mean, it sounds like you've really fulfilled an important need for a lot of people here, and that's really great, really great. Your father has been a partner with, was a partner with, Titan Aviation, and you had this vision, to really help people. And that's really, having watched him as a Baltimore Ravens fan, seemed like the kind of guy, didn't have a big heart on the field, especially with guys like Rich Gannon in that playoff game. But definitely had a heart, remembered the kind of environment where he came from, to be willing, to have a vision to even think of this. How many people, a lot of people don't always have the thought to do something or to give something back. It really takes kind of a special person to really think, well, how could I use at least part of this for good for others?
Right. And that's, that's how he lived his daily life. He had such a big heart. Maybe on the field it was a different story because game time was game time, work time was work time.
Hmm.
But when he lived his day-to-day life, he made it his one of his life missions to just give back and make people's days and make people smile and change lives, and for all that he's accomplished in his life and all the success and that he's reached, it's a really special thing to know that somebody could have that big of a heart and
Hmm.
give back in big ways like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the things, I mean, he was one of the most beloved sports figures that this city has seen. Orioles and Colts, and then we've had other teams here too, but those are were the two big ones. And I could just tell. I mean, I've read his book. I watched him play for the time he was here. One thing that I remember from his book, and then I also read about this in the paper. Got out of Pitt, signed with Indy, got a signing bonus check. And what did he do with it? He went to his friends, treated them to a night out at the corner bar.
Yep. I mean, it was a $1,000 signing
Hmm.
bonus at the
Right.
time. And he was like, all right, what better way to celebrate with all the people that he loved. And he
Hmm.
opened a tab at the bar and they all just had a good night.
Hmm.
And that shows you one thing about my dad. It relates back to how he lived his life giving back. It was that the success that he reached in his life, it was never just for him. He
Right.
wanted to bring others up with him,
Hmm.
even at one of the highest moments of his life at that time, signing with the Colts from being a free agent,
Hmm.
took that and he went and he celebrated with his friends and he gave back to his friends.
And he was also, just from seeing him again, was a lot like the people that we've grown to love, watching, the Baltimore Colts when I was a kid and when my father was a kid too. Blue collar guys, they worked jobs during the off season. They were not, they didn't have the salaries back in the 50s and 60s to go all year on that. They were working alongside, regular folks at Bethlehem Steel, GM, Lever Brothers, Crown Cork and Seal, working jobs alongside them. They were at the bar at night with you. They were in the neighborhood. Their kids were going to school with your kids, just neighbors and friends and just regular folks. Now, granted, in the 40 some years since then, we have this problem with some people being weird, and you do have to kind of isolate yourself a little bit, but that seems like reading your dad's book, talking about where he grew up, the kind of people he grew up around, and just his general way just the way he really kind of carried himself, being a funny guy and just a very down to earth, blue collar roots guy. He really fit in well here.
Yeah, yeah. One thing about my dad is that he never forgot where he came from.
Hmm.
And he grew up in a blue collar town,
Yeah.
in a blue collar family. His father worked three jobs to take care of their family of five.
Hmm.
And that was always something that my father admired. He admired his work ethic and he respected the work that it took,
Hmm.
you know, during that time that his father, showcased to him. And, my dad, he didn't come from much, but he knew what it was like to work your way
Hmm.
from the bottom to the top. And like I said, he never forgot where he came from.
Another thing I like, his book. was hysterical. I can remember I was on a flight for I was doing some business traveling and I bought his book and I was like, oh, I'm reading it and I'm laughing out loud during the flight. People around are looking at me like I was nuts. And I was like, I'm sorry, but this book is hilarious. And I mean, such great stories in there and everything too. If you really God, I'm drawing a blank on the title, but
Goose.
Goose, yeah, that okay, right. Yeah.
It's all right.
Right, right. I see that you have two siblings, correct? And
Yes,
they're also involved in the company.
yes. I have a brother and a sister, and they are very well involved with Goose Flights, and I'm grateful to have their support during this as I'm,
Hmm.
president, sort of hightailing it. Yeah, they are super supportive of it, of us fulfilling, our dad's vision through this way, and then my brother has a sort of a bigger role with the other company, Titan Aviation Group. He has sort of stepped into my dad's shoes in running the company with my father's business partner and just making a big impression in that way. So I'm super proud of him, and I know my dad would be for that as well.
Oh, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he'd be proud of all of you. Again, it's just a wonderful thing that you're doing here. It's and the one thing too is that, and I've always said this to people, somebody's true legacy, forget the football field, forget everything else, the family he leaves behind. And I think, three of you doing this is probably the best reflection on him, being willing to help people the way you are. I could imagine your job cannot be easy. I mean, you have people all over the country needing to get here and there. And I'm sure that not everything goes as expected, right? But
Yes.
you're in the trenches making things happen.
Yes, one thing that our dad taught us since we were young is A, don't be afraid to fail, but B, you can do what you can to overcome adversity. You're
Hmm.
always going to face adversity in your life, but you can go and you can attack it and you can overcome adversity. And there's been a lot of adversity that we faced in
Oh,
unexpected
sure.
ways losing him, and it turned our worlds up completely upside down.
Oh, so
But
young too.
yeah, yep. But we know that what he would want us to do is to keep going, keep
Hmm.
going. This is definitely adversity in our life, but to keep going and give it 100% and to enjoy life in the process. So everything we do every day, no matter the challenges, no matter the adversity that we face, we do it because of him. We do it for him.
Hmm. I'm sure he'd be very proud to see what you've accomplished so far and that you continue to do for people. Again, just carrying on this vision, something that's very good-hearted, something that's definitely needed, and you're really making a difference for a lot of people. Let me ask you this: is there a website or anywhere we can go to get more information?
Yes, absolutely. So, if you're interested in the beer, you can go to pressboxsports.com/gooseflights, and it'll show you a bunch of different ways that you can get the beer at, Guilford Hall Brewery, Glory Days Grill, Costa's Inn. But then if you're interested in our transportation services, or if you know somebody who could utilize our services, well, we're here to help, and you can go to gooseflights.org, and you'll be able to submit a form on there. And then, of course, keep up with us on Instagram at Goose Flights. We post a bunch of recaps of the flights that we do, the trips that we do, and the way that we're, continuing on our father's legacy through
Hmm.
Goose Flights.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, folks, you've heard it here, and are there things that, other things that people can do to help?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, of course. Donations go a long way. So if you want to donate, you can also do that on our website, gooseflights.org. There's a big need for transportation, and of course, we're growing.
Hmm.
Um, we're about a year and a half in, since we've been officially established. So any donation amount, it counts, and it counts for something really big and special.
I'm sure that that could be really utilized nowadays, especially too, because it seems like over the last maybe 5 years or so, the price of fuel has been up and down like a yo-yo, and I'm sure that that's got to be a factor, a real challenge for you sometimes when it comes to doing all this transportation of people too, right?
It does, but luckily, so the way that Titan Aviation Group
Hmm.
helps us is they do this all volunteering,
Okay.
and they have excellent relationships with multiple operators of the aircraft.
Oh,
So
great.
operators know what our mission is, and they provide the aircrafts at a very discounted rate for us. So
Hmm.
that's helpful.
Oh,
But of
great.
course, the gas is definitely a big problem, especially for, people who are trying to get to their doctor's appointments. They can't afford gas themselves. So
Hmm.
that's another thing that we do. We come in and we assist with the gas needs as well.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Well, best of luck to you with all of your future endeavors and everything. And thank you for doing such a great thing for the people. I'm sure, everybody out there that really needs you is grateful to all the things. And I'm sure a lot of people hearing this are glad to know that you're there now. They may not have heard of what you're doing. And I'm hopefully, my listeners will, maybe somebody listening to this can benefit from it someday. You never know.
Absolutely. I would love that. And thank you, Michael, for having me and allowing me to share the message of Goose Flights and what we do and, in continuing on our dad's legacy and just making an impact. So I really appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Sammy, thank you for joining us today. Remember, folks, gooseflights.org. And we will see you all next time. Thanks again for listening, folks. And thank you, Sammy. And thanks again for listening to 97 Underground, the Michael Spedden Interviews, and we hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, download the free app from 97underground.com so you can listen to us wherever you go. The Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show, can be heard on 97underground.com every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Listen anytime, anywhere. Metal. Worldwide metal, 24/7. 97 Underground.